well. So let's start. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for this very special International Women's Day event hosted by WIA Munich, or also Women in Aerospace Munich. I'm Arti Dole. I'm a co-lead of WIA Munich along with Tejal Takore, and I'm very happy to host today's session. For most of you or those who are new to our community, Women in Aerospace Munich is a part of Women in Aerospace Europe Network, and our organization works to promote diversity and inclusion within the aerospace sector. The main goal is to support the professional development of women in aerospace, while also encouraging more inclusive and balanced industry overall. Through Munich Regional Network, we try to bring together professionals, researchers, students, and organizations across the aerospace ecosystem. And our activities range from industry talks to industrial visits, to workshops, to networking events that help people to connect and share knowledge and support each other within the sector. So today's event is particularly special because it connects our community directly to the people working in the frontiers of exploration. And today's International Women's Day. So we wanted to highlight two qualities that often lies in the core of our progress in science and exploration, which is capability and curiosity. And that's why today's theme is capability is the future, because when we look at the future of exploration, particularly space or science or even extreme environments on Earth, progress ultimately depends on people who are resilient, curious, and willing to push their boundaries. So our today's speakers represent exactly the same spirit. And what makes today's event even more special is our speakers are not joining from studio or office, and they are directly in the expedition in Hawaii, conducting the field observations and experiment in a volcanic environment used as an analog for planetary exploration. And these environments help our researchers study about humans and technology that may operate in extreme planetary conditions, such as Mars or probably Moon. So here they are. So let me, it's my pleasure to introduce both the speakers today. Let me start from Dr. Amelie Schoenenwald. She is the European Space Agency Astronaut Reserve Class for 2022, selected from over 23,000 applicants across Europe. She holds a PhD in Integrative Structural Biology from TUM, which is Technical University of University, and has worked across biotechnology, healthcare, strategy, and innovation. Beyond her scientific career, Amelie has extensive expedition experience in extreme environment, including Arctic expeditions, high altitude mountaineering, cave exploration, sailing expedition, and deep diving across the world. Like, these are all the checkpoints in my bucket list, honestly. I don't think I'll be able to achieve any of this, but somewhere there. And she is currently ESA astronaut reserve training. She's completing ESA astronaut reserve training sessions in preparation for the potential future space missions. And let me also introduce our second speaker, who is Dr. Shawna Pandya. Yes, and she is a Canadian commercial astronaut, physician, and also space medical researchers. All of them like most difficult subjects, I think they are. And she is scheduled to fly to space on Virgin Galactic's Delta spacecraft with the International Institute of Astronautical Sciences. In addition to her astronaut training, she works as an emergency and aeromedical transport physician and serves as a director of the IIAS Space Medical Group. She is also participating in several extreme environment missions, including underwater missions as an aquanaut. And she works extensively on research related to human space flight and space medicine. And for me, oh my God, this is like already I'm impressed beyond measures. But welcome both of you, Amelie and Shawna, and thank you for joining us today. To begin our conversation, we thought we would like to hear more about your personal journeys behind this exploration. So let me start with Amelie. So you have already explored several amazing environments, really extreme ones, from polar regions to high mountains and caves. And what can you share a bit about your journey into exploration and space, and what inspires you and keeps inspiring you and motivating you in pushing your own boundaries and exploring and pursuing such extreme environments?
Yeah, thank you so much for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here on Hawaii and on this call. And I think I start for the beginning. I'm gonna start with my childhood, because it's all due to my parents. My mom was someone who actually taught me how beautiful it is to be outside and to spend time in nature. And this was for me the very first step, because I started understanding there's so much out there, so much to understand, so much to learn, so much to be curious about. And to be honest, like I love birds, maybe a bit too much, and all the plants and animals and everything you can see there. And obviously, as a kid already, I just enjoyed staring at the stars. And I was really fortunate to have had a bed which was like in such a position that I could always look at the stars when I was trying to fall asleep, or trying to stay awake, actually. So this was really, really cool, and sent me down a path of curiosity and like a lot of love and inspiration for science, because science was the tool that you could use to understand what you are looking at out there. And eventually I studied biochemistry and biotechnology, because for me, this was the first step to really understand what is it made of, what are these tiny molecules that are the building blocks of life. And then starting from that, you can go deeper and understand metabolistic structures and pathways, and just go step and layer further out to actually understand the whole environment. So that's what I did. And obviously, only sitting at your desk and studying books is not the thing. You have to work in the laboratory and understand and do experiments and just do all of these beautiful things. But it's also extremely important to do this as a team, because science is also a team sport, just like space is. And I figured working in the lab is one part for me, but I also want to work in the field. And I try to explore every single part of what our beautiful planet is made of, also in my free time. So as soon as I got the chance, I started traveling the world. I went on any kind of expedition training I could get a hold of. By the way, I did a wilderness medical training in Morocco.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
That's so cool.
So that was really, really important for me, because we climbed a mountain, the highest mountain in Morocco, Mount Toukal. And this was my preparation for a follow-up expedition to Nepal, where we actually climbed a much, much higher mountain. And I felt much more secure just because I did all this preparation. And also because I know, like, if I break my leg, I know at least a little bit what to do, just a little bit. And I think that's also one thing that I would like to share with you, because you were asking about my inspiration, what keeps me motivated. And the thing is that I see every single thing that I do as some kind of preparation for whatever comes next. So even being here in Hawaii, it's just our first expedition in lava tunnels on Hawaii, basically caves, and it's amazing. And we already have a first field day where we said we need to have a follow-up expedition, because we found some structures that are so interesting, and we need to come back with more equipment and different equipment to actually fully understand what's down there. So basically every single step has a follow-up, and I just really love that, because there's so much to explore, so much to learn, and so much for me and for us as humans to grow with. And yeah, that's just absolutely amazing.
Wow.
And taking the whole thing one step further, this is just like my life all the way up to the astronaut selection. And now even having been selected as a reserve astronaut, I don't even know if I ever go to space. I'm so happy you can go. I don't know if I can go, because there's not many missions for Europeans. So I have to be very patient, and maybe I will never go. Nevertheless, I get to do the training, and we do also wilderness survival training in winter environments, but also in water environments, to do sea survival expeditions. But after all, it's all about the path, and it's always tied into science. And what I love so much about it is, thinking of the International Women's Day, that now in our astronaut class, we have almost 50% women. So things are changing, and we're there, and we're so. I'm actually really proud that there's two of us sitting here and looking at a life that has been so full, and there's still so much to come in the future. And I really do hope that there's somebody out there who can take this and be inspired by it and just uses it as a stepping stone for their path, for their life that they actually wish to build.
How cool.
That was so well said. I just want to listen to you all day. We should just listen to you talk. That was great.
Yeah, sure. I mean, seriously, we could listen to you all the day. But what does fear has any role in all your expeditions? Are you scared at any point?
Do you want Amelie to answer that?
Yes. I'll turn to you, Shawna, in some time.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Spotlight. So fear, it really depends how one defines fear, because I think it's not that I'm fearless and risk, like I really love risk. It's just rather that you need to approach things like with a very calm mind and actually use your brain and not just stomp or storm into things that are just crazy dangerous. I mean, of course, like caving is not one of the safest hobbies in the world, but there's protocols, and you have to prepare. If you need the right equipment, you need the right training, and it's very advantageous if you have a doctor on the team. So fear really, I think it's a bit hard to say. It's rather respect, I would say. You need to be aware what you get yourself into, and if fear turns into panic, that's a place where I don't want to be. But with the right I think the preparation also is in the mental space, because like, okay, I'm gonna go somewhere. What can happen? How do I behave to not make this happen? No. So, and after all, I'm here because I want to be here. And if there was too much fear involved, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah, that sounds like adventure. Thank you, Amelie. So, Shawna, let's turn to you now. So your career is also at a very interesting intersection between, medicine, exploration, and space flight and space. Yeah. And so tell us about your journey. What was your path into space medicine and human space flight? And what experiences shaped your journey? What was your motivation? What keeps inspiring you to push your boundaries?
Yeah, that's a great question. So thank you so much, first of all, for having both of us. Like Amelie said, it is so exciting for us to be here at the top of the world in a very remote part of the world that takes many hours to get to, but to be talking to you about our work. So thank you for that. Like Amelie, I'm going to start in childhood because that's where my journey starts. And I think two things were really fundamental for me to set me on the journey where I came to today. And so the first one, it just speaks to the power of representation, which I think we really need to discuss on International Women's Day. So I was a kid growing up during the 90s, and I watched Dr. Roberta Bondar, Canada's first female astronaut, go to space. And that was like this aha moment for me, because it's like, oh my God, Canadian women can go to space, and I'm Canadian and I'm a girl. So maybe I can do what Dr. Bondar does. And so when you're a kid, you really oversimplify. And for me, I just thought, oh, she's a neuroscientist, a physician, and an astronaut. So I'm just going to go study neuroscience, medicine, and not be an astronaut. And that was just my life trajectory. There was no questioning that. And for the longest time in my life, I was a neuroscientist and a physician. And as of June 2024, I've been assigned to a suborbital research space flight, which is really, okay, thank you. So that's the first part of the childhood journey. And then like Amelie, I had parents who were quite adventurous, like to really illustrate the point. They grew up in India, and then for whatever reason in the 80s, they packed all their belongings into 2 suitcases and then moved across the ocean, and they landed in the middle of central Canada in the dead of winter, minus 35 degrees Celsius, a little bit of a difference from what they were used to. And for them, that was the start of the adventure. They grew up, we grew up, my brother and I, being very outdoorsy. We camped as a family. My brother was in Boy Scouts, I was in Girl Guides. And I just remember being camping with my family and staring at this night sky and just seeing the glittering arm of the Milky Way and thinking, I want to be out there. Or just, staying up till 2 a.m. during the Leonids meteor shower and making wishes on shooting stars and, just being so inspired by this vast, beautiful universe we get to be a part of. So my journey started in childhood. And then there were certain philosophies I think that really helped me. So for me, as much as my journey was going to be neuroscience, medicine, and then space, I also this kind of ties into the discussion about fear and how we think about risk. For me, I always think about risk and risk mitigation. So when I applied to medical school, it was a risk without a backup plan. So I thought to myself, medicine is incredibly competitive. What do I do if I don't get into medicine? Like, how will I spend the year doing something equally cool where I feel like I'll be advancing my career and I won't be lamenting the fact that I'm not in medical school? And I heard about this amazing place called the International Space University, and I knew they had a master's program. And so I applied to both. And to my shock, I got into both in the same year. And then I had this really tough decision, a good decision, but a tough decision to make. And ultimately what I did was I asked the Faculty of Medicine saying, hey, look, I know I applied for medicine in this year, but I also got this really cool opportunity. And I understand where the priority is, but I just really think this would help me get to my career. What do you think? You can say no. And to my surprise, they said yes. And I share this story because I think it illustrates two really key points. One is that always keep an eye out for opportunity, and then don't be afraid to pursue it. Number two is seek those environments that will support you, because I could have equally been at a different medical school that did not believe in this opportunity for me. And I know folks, in fact, who were in that position. So I think that's really important for those out there who might be early on in their careers and wondering about that decision making. And so that, that kind of was the foundation. And, the rest, I think we can talk about this hour, but like me, it started, like Amelie, for me, it started in childhood.
That's so cool. I'm sure this will inspire several generations in future. And thank you so much for sharing your journeys. And now I'd like to get into more broader conversations about the expedition and the extreme weather and environments and how you learn out of it. So you're already in the expedition right now, right? So we'll start with like really basics for all of us to understand, because we are not where you are. And so we would like to understand, what is this expeditionary behavior? What does this mean? And how important it is to have it while you're working in this kind of environment. So maybe we can start with Shawna, you, and then maybe Amelie can add later.
Yeah, sure. I think so. There's one of our crewmates. He's wearing it right now. He has this great shirt, and it says "Same, same, but different." And it's this picture of this aquanaut at the bottom of the ocean, working, and then her umbilical, I should say, goes to the top and then feeds into the umbilical of an astronaut on a spacewalk, doing their work in space. And the idea is, whether you're at the bottom of the ocean or up in space, you need some of the constraints of the environment, some of the risks, some of the protective gear that you need are same, but different. And so when we talk about expeditionary behavior, the generalization of how it pertains to space or to a caving expedition or to a Mars simulation to an underwater mission is that these are all examples of what we call ICE environments. So isolated, confined, and extreme environments. So by virtue of being in these arenas, you're resource limited. And so you need to come into the mission with your team being mission oriented, but you also need to be looking out for your team. So when we talk about expeditionary behavior, it involves looking out for the health of the mission at 3 levels. It involves looking out for the health of the mission at the objectives level, like, are we on track? And if we're not on track, what does the mission need to keep us on track or bring us back to course correct? What does the team need? Maybe the team had a really rough day, maybe you didn't meet the objectives of the day, maybe there was an injury, or maybe everyone's just really tired. So then you're looking out for the health of the team. And the final level of that is, well, what do I need to be a good contributing member of this team. And that can be as simple as saying, hey guys, I'm not at my best self today, so maybe I'm just going to go to bed early, or maybe I just need alone time, or maybe I just need to laugh. And one of my Astronaut buddies put it really, really well. He said on one of our first missions together, am I the kind of teammate I would want to have? Because I think it's a really simple question to answer. If the answer is no, I think it's time to do some soul searching and maybe figure out ways we can be the teammate we want to have. And if the answer is yes, there's always still room to improve. You know, can I be more conscientious? Can I look for things that need to be done? Can I be the one who does the dishes today after dinner? So that's kind of the general principle. But I know Amelie has done far more expeditions than I have, so I know you have a lot of pearls of wisdom too.
Wisdom, I don't know. I might want to add more to the human factor of the whole thing, because not everybody goes on expeditions like we do now, and not even for me. It's also my very first scientific expedition where we actually document a lot of things. Everything I've done so far was like more the adventurous kind, and yet it's all more or less the same, because you're a group of people who may or may not know each other before you go on the expedition. Most of the time you actually don't know each other, and you have very different kinds of personalities who somehow have to live in this ice environment. And it's tough. It's maybe you don't sleep enough, food is not good, it's not warm, maybe it's too warm. So it's quite hard on some persons, and even on every person on a different day. So you kind of have to learn how to deal with that. And in the end, for me, this reflects every single corner of life, because we're all humans on a planet. And whether it's in the work environment or at home with your family or with your friends, you're always kind of in a group of people, and you have to deal with each other. So on expedition, it's exactly the same, just a couple of levels tougher. But in the end, it's also about empathy. It's about reading other people. It's about knowing yourself. It's about communicating how you feel, how what you need, and how the whole team would just work smoothly together. And then also you have a mission goal which needs to tie into that. And sometimes you have to balance that out. Sometimes it's like a synergy, but it's always different, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah. So your current mission is described as working in an austere environment, a severe environment. Like, what does it mean in practice, and what kind of challenges like you face as a team, or it can create for your team?
Yeah, sure. I think we can answer this one together. And so, like, for example, I don't normally travel with as much luggage as I do, but I have 2 full-size checked bags, as well as a roll-on, as well as my shoulder bag. And the reason for that is we're bringing all of our resources with us, because otherwise we would not have them. So that means comms. We have Starlink kits to have real internet connection in the field. As the crew medical officer, I have assembled my medical kit, and it's tapered and tailored based on the environment, based on what pathologies I expect to see most. So blisters, for example, is something that I'm very prepared for. It's tailored to, in the same way we would pack for space, the mass and volume constraints I'm working with, I have to be able to carry this with me. So it's not a big old bag, it's just a backpack I have. It's tailored to my skill level. So I'm a physician. I have prescription medications in there. I have suturing equipment in there. And then we also kind of have the field camping type gear, so sleeping bags and the like. And so it's like we are bringing the environment and the resources we need with us. We're tailoring ourselves to the environment. Like Amelie was saying, it's not, you don't have the creature comforts of home. It may not be the food that you're used to. Definitely the environment, the elements. The folks from our team who are out today have a little bit of sunburn. There might be risk of wind exposure. So it really is being away from the creature comforts you might have in everyday life, I think is the most succinct way to put it. But, you know, maybe, yeah.
I'll add on to this.
Yeah.
I'm going to first speak about the comfort part, because also your question earlier, it's, I personally, and that's a very personal thing, I really enjoy bringing myself into situations where I'm out of comfort, because it's, not only it's fun and tough and challenging, and I grow every single time, and it's amazing, but also I go back home and I just appreciate everyday life luxury items so much more, like a hot shower. Oh my God, it's the best ever.
Yeah.
Or just like, I don't know, something fancy you want to eat, sushi or whatever. You don't have that. And you just, like with every expedition, I come back home and I just appreciate things more that are there and take them for granted usually. And this also calms me down as a person. I'm just very grateful for everything I have and will have. So that's something I always get out personally from expeditions. But now also speaking to what you asked, I remember going on a 2-week jungle expedition. So we were basically crossing Panama, and it was a guided tour. I mean, it wasn't like a normal tourist tour. It was still very adventurous, but it was just people basically being put together and they just go for it. And you were supposed to bring your own personal equipment, including shoes and everything else, and mosquito nets and your hammock where you actually sleep in, the shovel with which you dig your own toilet every single day. So it's a lot of things you need to take care of. And on day 2, one of the ladies on the team, she basically broke her shoe, her boots. And now you have still 13 days to go on this expedition in the jungle with snakes and spiders and scorpions and I don't know what else is out there. And the shoe was still okay to go, but she was very, very in pain. And she continued because she was super tough. Maybe sometimes she even cried, but she continued. And this was just so eye-opening to me, how people just really, when they set their mind to something, they can do it. Even though you might look at them and you think they might be weak, but actually it's just a mindset thing. Maybe next time she would wear better shoes, but okay. And then another girl on this expedition, she actually started having trench foot.
Oh my God.
So we had trench foot. It's basically a disease that you get in very humid environments where it's warm. And is it a fungus?
I actually have not heard of trench foot in a very long time, so I don't know what the causative organism is.
So it's either fungus or it's bacteria, but basically your foot is entrapped in your shoe, which is wet all day for several days and it never dries up. And because of all this moisture and the heat, little tiny microorganisms grow in there and they basically eat into your foot. So it's very painful. And if you don't take care of it, it can be really really bad for you. So we started having that as well on our team and we had to deal with it. And like all these things happen and you need to be prepared. And even if you're prepared, sometimes they happen.
I'm going to go pack another pair of socks for tomorrow.
It's not so moist.
That was just so scary. Oh my God. People need, okay, so how I understand it from what you said, it is more of having, it's more of a mind training, right? To prepare you for the toughest of situations, because of course you have extreme environments here on Earth, but probably in some other planet, it might be something else which you're not sure about. So you have to build your mind up, right? Okay, one nice question that just came up right now to me. What food do you eat there in this kind of expedition?
Yeah, that's a great question. So today we had mac and cheese, which was really good, actually. I think you eat what the environment allows for. And so I think one thing I want to build on, Amelie's answer was great. And the way I view it is you have to be okay with being comfortably uncomfortable. So it means you have to be okay with that uncertainty. You can't just say, okay, when is this expedition going to be over? When am I going to get to the hot shower? When am I going to get to the nice bed? Because then it's not going to be a fun time for you. You're missing the moment, and you're probably not a lot of fun to be around either. Like, you have to love the whole idea of that you might get trench foot. That you might not be sleeping on a nice king size mattress, but you're doing it for the love of the game. So I would say for anyone who wants to do what we do, but you hate the idea of expeditions, that may not be the path. You don't have to be an expeditionist. Maybe you're an engineer or a scientist, but we do this because we love it. So for food, it's kind of like the medical kit, actually. You tailor it to the environment and what it allows. And so we're kind of in luxury here. We have a fridge. We have a We have a stove, so that's not something you get on every expedition. So when we were underwater, so one of our other caving team members, we did 2 underwater expeditions together. And when you're in an underwater habitat, open flames are frowned upon. So you can't cook anything beyond what you would cook in the microwave or just eat cold. And so really, from that mission, it was all prepackaged food. We were lucky enough to have a fitness company, high protein company sponsor us, but they knew that I was vegetarian. And so they interpreted that to mean omelets for breakfast, omelets for lunch, omelets for dinner, omelets for dessert. So it got really, really old really quickly. Like by the 3rd day of the mission, I was ready to throw the next omelet I saw at the wall. But one of my other Aquanaut crewmates, he saw that, and this comes back to my point about expeditionary behavior. Like he just saw that I was suffering with so many omelets, and then he just grabbed the Wonder Bread and the peanut butter and jelly and slapped them together and made me this peanut butter sandwich, and it was the best underwater PBJ sandwich I had. And so it was just someone who had the emotional intelligence to look out for his teammates. And so the food may not always be what you want, but it's also realizing this is temporary. Like it's not a forever thing. I'm not eating omelets for the rest of my life, although it was a year before I could eat omelets again after that mission.
Wow. And are you still vegetarian?
Yeah, I've been vegetarian for a very long time.
Okay. Wow. I mean, that is really inspirational. I can't be vegetarian and do all that for sure. Okay. So, next question is like, what exactly are you doing in this expedition? Like, what kind of work are you doing? What kind of research are you doing? How is it helping us prepare for the future exploration, space explorations? So, Amelie, maybe you can start this time.
Yeah, I can start and you can just chip in. So I came prepared. I mean, we all came prepared, but this is our mission patch.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
So what you can see here is a volcano in the center, and basically that's what we do. So we're currently on the big island of Hawaii, and in the center there's 2 big volcanoes, and we're just at the foot of one of them. And every single day we're going to venture out and explore, like basically the lava field that's coming out of the volcano. It's all dried up, so you can safely walk on it. And then basically we go up there and explore different kind of caves that might end up being lava tunnels. And if it's a tunnel, we go inside, put on our gear, our helmets, our torches and headlamps, and just go in there and see what you can find there. And all of this will be documented for future explorations if there's any kind of science that will be done there. Might you want to chip in on this?
Yeah, and there's a bit of a space element too, because we are actually using geospatial imaging data, and we're using the imaging we have from satellites, and we're ground truthing now. And so you can even look on Google Maps and see lava tubes. And we're also using a more advanced data set that has a little bit better resolution as well. And so then our job is to say, okay, based on what the satellite is seeing, what is actually there? Are there maybe some cave openings that are too small to be detected? Is this larger? Is this smaller than it seems? And if so, why? Is it the terrain? Is it the shadow? And you know, it's really cool to be in these previously unmapped tubes that, you know, maybe no one's been in them. Maybe someone's been in them a very long time ago. Maybe, you know, it's been known about but forgotten about. But that's the nature of exploration, you know, venturing into the unknown with a sense of curiosity and appreciation, and then also wanting to take that unique perspective that we have as explorers and then bring that back to those who may not have that perspective.
So, for example, what we did today in the field before you arrived, unfortunately, so we were basically hiking up the mountain and were venturing inside to some of the lava tunnels we knew about already. And then we moved further and went to a structure that our crewmate found on Google Maps, which basically looked like a belly button, and a gigantic belly button. And in the very center, there was actually a hole. And if you looked inside, you couldn't see the bottom. It was super, super deep. So we basically made a makeshift fishing rod where we put our torch and a GoPro and lowered it inside this hole, and it turns out it was at least 6 meters deep, and it was a gigantic chamber with 2 tunnels on each side. So now we already have something very promising for a future expedition where people might go inside with ropes and they just rappel down inside and see what's there. And
Wow.
also another
That
another
is not a
aspect
normal person, I'm sure.
might be us. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah. As long as you're not claustrophobic, it's actually pretty fun.
But also a very important aspect of this mission here for me personally is also the operational aspect, because it doesn't matter if you're here on Hawaii or in space or underwater or wherever, you always have to prepare. There's like a briefing, a debriefing every single day. You think about how to pair up in groups. So for example, here with 4 people, and every single day we're going to be in different teams of 2. And then there's one team underground, the other team might be staying up there, just being alert in case something happens. And in the meantime, we can do some simulations. So for example, I might learn something about medicine from Shawna because she teaches me. And there's other things that we can do in the meantime, but the operational aspect is extremely similar to what I've learned or what we do as astronauts, because it's always part of the mission. It's not only one person in space. There's like a whole environment, a whole gamut of people in different disciplines, men and women alike, who are supporting a mission from the very specialty and their very special discipline.
Yeah, how cool. And what does your typical day look like in this kind of expedition?
Yeah, so we're at day 1, but the nice thing, so you don't always get to choose your crew, but when you do, it is a luxury. And in this case, you know, I've been on expedition or in an austere environment with everyone on the crew previously, except Amelie, but I think your resume speaks for itself, so I have no reservations about you. But that means I'm used to the rhythm of, you know, our crew commander is very, very, very organized. So already on the wall, there is a daily schedule. So everything from the daily wake up to the daily breakfast as a team, the crew briefing about what we're going to do, the proposed trek and the exploration we're going to do for that day, and then which 2 are going to be out in the caves, who's going to be on field support, what's the plan for the field support team, are they just hanging out in the field, are they running a different operation or sim of their own, are they going on a supply run? So there's a lot going on. So when we talk about operational environments, it's simply respecting the fact that you're in this 3-dimensional environment that's highly dynamic. There's propensity to change over time. And so your job is to keep an eye on the environment and then the people within the environment and then how they're changing over time. And so then we get to the end of our day, we debrief, we make supper as a team, we kind of debrief on the next day's plans. And then of course, building crew cohesion, building morale is really, really important. So there's fun and games involved as well.
How cool. And like what kind of experimentations or observation you carry out there? Would you be able to share? Okay.
Yeah, I think the biggest one is what Amelie was talking about with what the crew was doing today is just getting more information about these things that we know exist, that these caves and lava tube openings we know exist. And I was getting a good rundown from the team about how they're doing the description, how they're getting video capture. So I get to start doing that with the team tomorrow. So
maybe you want to share the story about the swaps in the other cave that you did with your teammate, where it was a completely new species.
Oh yeah, no, I didn't do that cave, but yeah. So this is the joy of exploration. But I was in the Azores with the Explorers Club a couple of years ago, and someone had told me there's great caves there. So this is just like the Hawaii of Portugal, and I love caves. So I thought, okay, let me go to these caves. And I just remember looking at the ceiling and seeing this kind of like fungus mold on the ceiling and just think, I'm just curious, like, what is that? I would love to know more about it. And of course, like I was just there kind of exploring on my own. It wasn't a scientific expedition. I didn't have any swabs or anything. And then at the end of this exploration summit, it turned out that one of the teams who did come, that was actually their job. They found microbes in extreme environments. They qualified new microbes in previous environments that hadn't been described before. And they actually ended up swabbing. They went to that same cave, they swabbed the microbe, and they described an entirely new species. Like, and it's just, it's incredible. It's beautiful. It's inspiring to me that we live on this planet and there's still things that lay unknown to us, that lay to be discovered. And we have a role in playing in like answering these questions and then sharing that with others. And that's really, really cool.
Yeah, and already day one today, we found a new chamber and we lowered the camera in there and we saw some mold, something growing in there. So just imagine, maybe that's a new species we can describe. So
the video was really cool.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm
Super.
really excited for you, and I wish to be there. I really do. And can you? I'm just asking if you can also share this video someday on YouTube or something for our people to see.
Yeah, definitely. We have plans to keep bring the world along with us on our journey. As long as we're keeping the crew safe. Like we're not going to live stream anything out of a cave, but we really want the beauty of explorations. I really think that not everyone can go to these places. Not everyone can go to these unknown caves. Not everyone goes to space. But that's why communication and storytelling is so important, and it's something that we do in the astronautics world. Outreach is really important, and it's something that we really plan on doing with this mission as well.
That's cool. We'll wait for it. So, okay, the next question is: so you guys have already worked in extreme environments before, right? So, how have these experiences prepared you for this particular mission? And additionally, if there is some particular incident that has happened in any of the previous expeditions you have been and that has really pushed your limits, you're like, this is it, I can't push myself further beyond it. Has any of this happened before?
I think one thing that you learn that, like I said earlier, being able to choose your crew is a luxury. And, you learn what kind of teammate you want to be, that you aspire to be and try to grow into. And then just look for another teammates. And that's like the ones who are empathetic or smart, who are resourceful, who view these types of austere environments. There's this term in positive psychology called salutogenesis. And it's sort of like this idea of not, oh my God, I'm going to be in this environment and it's going to be cold and I won't have my things. It's more like, that sounds cool. I want to be there and I can't wait to challenge myself. So it's this idea of rising to the occasion and finding team members like that. And so, in early expeditions in my career, there wasn't always that. And even that's a learning point. And, you learn that, you don't always get to choose who you're around in daily life in expeditions. And, learning the emotional intelligence of what needs to be a conflict versus what doesn't need to be becomes really, really important. And then I think, when to the second part of your question about a time when, maybe things didn't go my way on the underwater mission, this really comes down to knowing the environment. And then it's the difference between intellectually understanding the environment and then experiencing it. And so one example is on our first underwater mission, we knew there's a pressure differential. So you're at sea level and you're at 1 atmosphere, and then the deeper you go, the more pressure you have to contend with. And so we were at 1.6 atmosphere. It wasn't too big a pressure differential, but it still mattered because our foam flip-flops squished down. Marshmallows we brought down with us squished down. And then it became very relevant for the science because we were doing salivary cortisol studies. And so then we put them in these plastic tubes. And then, intellectually, we knew that when you send samples to the surface, air is going to expand. But experientially, we didn't think about it until the tops of these lids popped off and we made unintentional spit bombs. And then we thought, okay, we have to recalibrate. And this is the beauty and also the challenge of working in these resource limited environments is you have to learn to work the problem. You'll have to learn to think critically in real time. You can't let yourself be down when you face a single obstacle. You just say, okay, how do I fix this? And if this is a big problem, how do I break it down? And if it's a very emergent problem, what is the first thing I need to do right now to deal with it? And so for us, it just involved squeezing out a little bit of air in the tubes. It was either that or we kept them a little bit open, but just making sure that there was no pressure differential that could create these spit bombs. So things are, no matter how much planning you do, the unexpected is always going to happen, and you just have to be okay with that uncertainty.
Yeah, and exactly, this is why it's so important to do these kind of expeditions or analog missions in this case, or even parabolic flight campaigns, because all of this prepares you for an austere environment like space where things are just a little bit different than what you expect in everyday life. And on like a parabolic flight campaign where you have like 22 seconds of zero gravity or weightlessness, more or less, things go different than they do on ground. And if you spend a lot of money shooting things or experiments all the way up to the space station, you want to know beforehand if your idea or concept even works. So that's why it's extremely important to have these missions. And it's not only about equipment or pressure, there's all sorts of things involved.
There's always something.
Yeah. And first part of your question, what I learned during all the expeditions, I think by now I really know how to pack things. And that's extremely important. I know how many layers of clothes do I need? Do I sweat easily? Am I cold easily? How many headlamps do I need? And there's certain kinds of equipments that you want to have like 4 times just because they might break and your teammates might break and you want to have some spares. And other things, they are just obsolete. Like in my case, conditioner. I don't bring conditioner on expeditions. That doesn't. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, but is there any particular incident that you think has really pushed your limit?
I mean, there's a couple of things that I could think of, but like the first thing that came to mind was one time we did, it was not even an expedition, it was just a normal climbing weekend, basically. So we hiked up a couple of mountains in Austria. It was beautiful. There was glacier fields, and we went across these glacier fields, and then suddenly there was like this wall of very, like, not slippery, but like rock that you touch and it starts crumbling. And we actually had to climb this wall to get to the second glacier. And below that wall, there was just very, very deep slopes, very, very steep slopes. So you don't want to fall.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not comfortable doing this. And if I knew beforehand, I would not have done it. But you're part of a team, and there has to be a team decision. And either you go back or you move forward. And for example, in this case, I would have wanted to go back. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So this last question is more about teamwork and management, because I understand that all of you are working, the entire team is working in a very isolated and extreme environment. So is there a situation where, you know, the individual ambition comes above the team ambitions? Because this is a very competitive place that you are in anyways. That, you know, like for example, Amelie, you have been selected out of 23,000 applicants. It was not easy to be where you are. So have you ever faced some complications like this?
Certainly there's very often in life there's situations like these, but honestly I need to say for the astronaut selection it was not like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel they were selecting for people who actually value the team over their own ego, and that's why I don't feel this happened during the selection. But of course,
I'm sorry, I think this question came wrongly. It was not about the selection, it was about the expedition, because it's really extreme and sometimes people would want to have their own ambitions above others.
What I would say is, if that's the attitude you're taking, then I think there's a lot of growth that needs to happen before you can call yourself a successful expeditionist.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're thinking about how am I, Shawna, going to win the day, then you're not thinking about the expedition, and that's not going to be a successful mission. You win when the team wins. And that starts with developing a shared mental model of success. So when I was on one of my analogue missions, I was commander at the Mars Desert Research Station. And that started with sitting down with everyone and developing our shared mental model of success. And I straight up said it starts with safety, science, outreach, fun, in that order. There's no question, and I need to make sure that we all understand that. And so this actually ties into the earlier point about, comfort levels, because what I learned in being commander, the difference from when I was crew medical officer on a previous rotation, is that it's maybe just two of you out on a simulated EVA or a spacewalk. So myself and my expedition EVA partner on that first simulation, we were very comfortable with risk. You know, there's a running joke that Canadians, we like to climb everything. And so we would find the steepest, hardest to climb, most slippery slopes, and we would, you know, just have a blast. And for us, you know, there's almost this metaphor about why we push the limits, because if we didn't, you know, pick those hardest slopes to climb, we wouldn't have been able to see these amazing new pathways that lay to be discovered. But the difference when because I found myself starting to kind of go up the steeper hills, and then I realized that's not my job here. My job is to cater to the basest comfort level. And so I noticed that many of the team were not as quick or not as able or just not comfortable going up the slopes. And then I realized, okay, I got to dial it back because this is not about me. This is about the team. And then I really had this humbling moment because, you know, I was kind of straddling this line between being commander and being a doctor. And then on one of my expeditions, there were two doctors, and we could see someone was starting to have a panic attack. They were feeling very claustrophobic, but they were still doing well. And as emergency physicians, you know, we see everything on the spectrum of panic. And so for us, this team member looked good. We felt they were able to continue on. And then when we debriefed later, the perspective that was so insightful for us is that our comfort level as emergency physicians is not the non-physician's comfort level, and the rest of the team was quite uncomfortable and wished we just stopped. And so it was a really humbling moment in leadership, because when you make mistakes, it's on display for the whole team to see, and you need to own up to it, otherwise you're going to lose trust. But it also is the learning point for me is that, you know, you have to come to the level of your team. You have to meet them where you're at, because if you don't, your team cohesion is going to fracture very quickly. And then to come back to my initial point is that you are not going to win if it's about you on the mission. You win when the team wins.
Excellent. I love the answer. Thank you so much. So before we open question and answers for the audience, I have one last question. Is there any message for you to the girls who wants to be astronauts in the future?
You can go first.
Yeah, sure. I think that this is the best possible time to be alive in human spaceflight. You know, you have an agency astronaut here, you have a commercial astronaut here, and I hope we get to fly together someday. That would be amazing. And it's like, this is, you know, this is the time in which you can pick not just to be an astronaut, but what kind of astronaut do you want to be? We do it through research at my research institute. We get to do it for the love of science. And we're also in this new era of access where, you know, historically, once it was the domain of military pilots and engineers and civilian pilots and physicians and scientists. And now, you know, we're seeing there's going to be a need for storytellers and artists as well. And so don't put yourself in a box. Pick what it is that you love, and then work really, really, really hard to get there. And then act like you belong here, because you do. So make space for yourself.
Awesome.
And also, I would like to add, because this is a brilliant answer, almost nothing to add here. But not everybody has to be an astronaut, and nobody has to want to be an astronaut. So there's so many other beautiful things out there, and we are so diverse. Everybody has their own talents, their own passions. And the only thing that I think is extremely important is that you, or the girls out there, should never let anybody else tell them they cannot do that. So just choose what you want to do and just go for it.
So cool. Thank you so much. So at this point, I would like to open the floor for the audience. If they want to ask questions, they can raise their hands, or maybe they can also put into the chat.
Something in the chat. The chat says,
That's
oh, that's you. Okay.
That's a normal thing. Okay, so let me check. All right, there seems to be no questions yet.
We send them into silence.
Yeah, because it was astounding. You had such amazing things to say. Okay, Fanny is saying you're very inspiring. Zofia here has a question.
I think there's a hand up. Yeah.
Yes, yes, Zofia. Zofia, yeah, please go on.
Yes, hi everyone. Good morning and thanks for the inspirational talk. I wanted to ask if you care to share about a failure that you had and what did you learn about in your journey?
In terms of expeditions, astronauts, or just in life in general?
I just think that I think in general, because I think many of us has like roadblocks in life, in very different lives, and whatever you feel. Maybe it's a tough question to start with, but
no, I failed lots.
Yeah, no, I can start something extremely normal, and I think a lot of people can relate. So failure is a tough word on this one, because I think it's just normal to do so. But anyways, when I was younger, I just dreaded speaking in public. I didn't want to be in the center of attention. I didn't want to be on stage. I didn't want to be heard in some way. And this, actually, it is definitely a failure, because then you are not heard and nobody listens to your opinion. And it's something that I wish I learned earlier, that my voice counts and that I can actually go up there and people are interested in me and my story and what I have to share. And to be very frank, I basically only learned that very, very late in my life. And it's fun to be out there and share things with people, because you start a conversation and then people give you more input and feedback, and then you grow even further. But if you're just there, like passively waiting for things to happen, it's I decided I don't want to be that anymore. And I just live a very different life right now, and there are so many opportunities coming up. And if this is anything that resonates with you, I highly recommend maybe taking some kind of speaking courses and just go out there and throw yourself into whatever you're fearing at the moment.
thank you so much. Very inspiring.
Yeah, for me, I have a whole TED talk on failure, because, I failed really, really hard early in life. And that's actually when I learned to cultivate resilience. And for the longest time, I was like, what is this buzzword? What does it mean? But before I was an emergency and aeromedical transport physician, I started off in neurosurgery because I thought that was my path towards space. I thought that's how I'd keep my love of neuroscience going. And, 3 years into this program, I felt this wasn't it. And then walking away with something that had been a dream since I was 15, there was this dissonance of how I viewed myself. And, you feel like you're at rock bottom when you make your career and your ambition so core to who you are. And, through a lot of self-reflection, I realized a couple of things. First of all, there's a way to be hard on yourself in a way that's destructive or a way that's constructive. And so you can have failures. And I also fully believe that if you've never failed, one of my friends, she's a fighter pilot. She says you're either lucky, lying, or God himself, right? So it's like we've all failed. And if you're always winning, you're in the wrong league. You're not pushing yourself hard enough. The second part of that is resilience. So that's actually kind of the undercurrent that's so innate to any expedition or to any extreme environment. It's this mental fortitude, this mental toughness. And it's not something that, we're born with. We weren't born like this. It's something that you can cultivate. And there's so many different models about it, of resilience out there. But briefly, it entails positive self-talk, positive social support networks, breaking things down, not being, overwhelmed by the magnitude of the problem, impulse control, resisting the urge to give up, and then mental rehearsal, not just for that positive best case scenario, but what am I going to do if the worst case happens? You don't want to just survive. You don't want to just perform on your best day. You want to survive on your worst. So, there's a lot of ways to think about failure, but it can be a beautiful teacher if you let it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys. We have a lot of questions in the chat, but Anil has raised his hand first. So let's let Anil speak first, and then we'll go to the chat questions. So Anil, you're muted, Anil. Can you just look into it, please? Yeah, you're unmuted now. No. So Anil, let's do one thing. Why don't you put your question in the chat and we'll look into it. Yeah. So let's look into our chat questions. And Caro, yeah, we saw your hand, and after the questions in the chat, we'll come back to you. Okay. Okay. So God, there are several questions. Okay, so Valerie's asking, thank you for the insights. You too, I would love to know about your beginning, how you got into your first expeditions when you didn't have any experience yet.
What was my first expedition?
Yeah, for me, I think like I just grew up with it. So I was in Girl Guides. So that means that you're learning to build tents very often. And by the time I was 14, I was creating entire camping programs for 4 to 6 year old girls. I was canoeing, I was kayaking, we were doing winter camping because we're from Canada. And then part of it was in school, and my brother did it as well. So my brother started doing outdoor education in junior high. So I was like, oh, just do outdoor education. And so that was really cool because in winter camp, we built quinzees that we hollowed out and slept in. And then in our final year, we actually did shelter building. So we actually built and slept in our own lean-tos. And my point of pride, which I hope everyone else is excited about, there were 4 girls and 3 girls in this 41-person camping trip. And we by far had the best lean-to because we just cared about, getting the structure right. So for me, it started off really early on. And so when does a camping trip become an expedition? You can argue that it's all a spectrum, that these are all related. Like even doing a camping trip can, get you prepared for dealing with that resource limited mindset. And that can be your next step towards an analog mission. That can be your next step towards, a different type of environment expedition. And that can be your pathway towards space.
Yeah.
From my side, I think the definition of an expedition, as you say, it's a bit wonky. Like everybody has a different opinion about this, but I think for me it was just very late that I did my PhD and I met some really amazing guys, and we just hiked in the mountains. And then we didn't only hike, but we actually climbed the mountains. And then there seemed to be a cave, so we looked into the cave. And 1 year later, we're like staying a week underground. So things just evolve. And I guess if you just follow everything that you love doing out of passion, then just magical surprises happen, just like they did for me. I never thought I'd love going into caves, but turns out I do.
Yeah, so you just need to keep experimenting and trying out new things, basically.
Yeah, and keep an open mind and your eyes open for the good things in life.
Yeah, perfect. So, okay, the next question is by Simona, who says, what could be the ultimate future mission for you? One after which you say, I can't believe you did it.
Oh, wow. I mean, I think a planetary space mission, whether that's exploring lava tubes on the moon and underground caving systems, well, not lava tubes, but like the underground caverns. Yeah, I guess we would call them Maoris and lava tubes on the moon. And then, Mars, just some sort of planetary expedition where I get to go. That would be pretty cool.
Awesome.
I say that almost every single time. Like every time there's something new. For example, like last year, I did my very first Arctic expedition training. And that was the first time I was man-hauling like this little sled behind me, like spending a couple of nights out there on Svalbard in northern Norway, and just sleeping in tents at, I don't know how cold it was, -30.
And -30.
It's super
Wow.
cold, but it was amazing. And looking back, I can't believe I did that. It's amazing. But obviously, I would love to go to the International Space Station. That would be like my primary goal at the moment.
That's very much possible. Okay. Yeah. All right. So Zofia is asking, first of all, thank you for this inspiring session. I would like to know, the space missions are becoming increasingly autonomous with AI system assisting decision making. From your perspective, how important will it be for the future astronauts to understand the psychology of human-AI interaction, almost like a form of robo-psychology, especially during long missions where humans may rely heavily on the intelligent systems?
Just to keep it short, I think it's going to be super important because we need to have AI, we need to have robots for long-term missions. it's already right now we have that, but the longer and the further missions go, the more we have to depend on that, especially when we're going to go to Mars or even on the moon already.
Yeah.
It's going to play a major role.
Yeah, and to get into the nuance of this from the medical perspective, when we talk about what successful Mars mission looks like, it acknowledges the fact that there's this time delay, and you're not going to be able to have the crew entirely reliant on mission control. And so for the medical concept of operations, we talk about Earth independent medical operations. And so, you know, as one doctor, like every weekend, I still practice emergency medicine. And so I am the sole doctor in a rural town. And that means, you know, I don't know every answer, but I need to know where I can find the answers, whether it's through a trusted medical resource, whether it's through phoning a consultant. And it's going to be a similar case on Mars. Your single crew medical officer or physician isn't going to know everything. And nearest help can be anywhere from a 6 to 48-minute round trip communication delay away, or there can even be a 2 to 3 week communication blackout when the sun sits between the two planets, between Earth and Mars. And so AI can be an enabling tool, but at the same time, we have to be very conscientious that there are pitfalls, that the sheer amount of data transfer is not something current planetary architecture, communication architectures support. And then that there's also a very real risk of model drift into something that's maladaptive, because you might be training on a very small data set because only 700-ish people have been to space, and those are very heterogeneous mission profiles, from suborbital to lunar to long duration, low Earth orbit. So there's a lot to consider. It's good to talk about. It can be an enabling tool, but we also need to be so mindful about where AI can steer us wrong.
Yeah, excellent. So, well, Anil has finally managed to message us. So he's saying he's 55, can he still become an astronaut? But I think
did it in the 90s. So yes.
Excellent. So the next question by Dana is also around the same thing. She's like, thank you so much for your experiences. I would like to ask if there is an ideal age on when to start training as an analog astronaut. And I would like to know if you have engineers as teammates during the expeditions, and what kind of research they do or you did with them. Thanks again.
I will start and stop when it gets to your part. So in terms of age, anybody basically these days can become an astronaut, and that's absolutely amazing. However, on the agency side, there is an age cutoff. So the higher end is 50 at the moment. So you can only apply until the age of 50. And there is no lower age, but you need to have finished a master's degree, and you have to have had 3 years of professional experience. Basically, this turns out to be 26 to 30 years old. So that's the age bracket if you want to apply at the European Space Agency, or possibly also at NASA. But that doesn't mean that you have to be in this age bracket. And the question you're asking, how old or ideal age to start training? You can start training right now. It doesn't matter how old you are. Basically, anything you do, learning languages, going to school, doing mathematics, having any kind of hobby, just programming for fun, whatever you do, it all ties into this. And basically all my hobbies, they also supported me in being selected, because I love diving, I love cycling, I love sports, I love languages, traveling. So it all helped. And basically, whatever you do, you're kind of training. Over to you.
Yeah. I mean, that was super well said. I think the best time to start is now. I think the other thing that I would caution the audience, maybe for those who think that, you want to do this, we fully encourage it. You don't all need to be astronauts, but if you do, we fully encourage it. The one thing I would counsel you is, don't get into the toxic trap of thinking, I need to be the first person to do this. I need to be the youngest person to do this. We see so much of that. And in the age of digital, like hyper connectivity, we also see the hyper competition. Mm-hmm. And it's you risk burning out. And what is the point of being the youngest? You can be the first, but I would say it's far more important that you're not the last. Aim to open doors for others, for science. I think that is, if you're aiming to make impact, to create a positive benefit for the world, to create a legacy, that's the way to do it. And, you know, to the other part of the question, that involves all comers, that involves engineers, that involves scientists, physicians. And so if you're an engineer, there's a role for you. If you're a scientist, there's a role for you. Even if you're a storyteller, there's a role for you.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And maybe one important thing that I would like to say is if you start training, wanting to become an astronaut, you have to be aware. There's only, as you said, a couple of 700 plus minus astronauts right now, people who have been to space. That's not a lot in the entire history of humankind. So the chances of becoming an astronaut are growing, but they're still very slim. And even I've been selected and I don't even know if I go. So just be aware of that, and don't do anything just to become something that you don't enjoy. So I highly encourage, if you enjoy, just pick diving, for example, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you only use it as a tool to get somewhere else, I don't recommend it.
Love the answer. It's very inspiring. Thank you. So Samana is asking if you could change anything to how the space industry is currently working, what would that be?
I have one thing. So I would love it to be more inclusive on a global scale. Just thinking about satellite access, because there's only a limited space in, let's say, low Earth orbit, for example, for satellites. And if it's populated already by 1 nation, 5 nations, 50 nations, and there's not enough space for all the others who might not be at a point where they can send satellites to space for their own economy, it's I would love to have rules in place that are accepted globally, so everybody has the same options and opportunities.
Yeah, I think along those lines, strengthening collaboration and strengthening ties, and then realizing that, you know, the history of space is still evolving. So it came from the Cold War, which was, you know, a political showdown, essentially. Then it went to the ISS exploration era. And that story is still unwritten because now we're entering the era of access and commercial space. And that's still quite an uncertain story, despite having increasing players in orbital and suborbital spaceflight. It's still a bit of a bubble. You know, one company might be grounded while another goes forward, and then it might switch. We've seen that in suborbital. We're still seeing it. You know, it's still quite volatile. And at the end of the day, we also can't forget that, you know, just because nations were there first doesn't mean that there isn't room to grow, that there isn't room to build partnerships. We're starting to see that Canada is strengthening its collaboration with ESA. But, you know, we're seeing that both having access to space is a superpower in terms of economic development, Earth observation, and the like. And there's more room. You know, we're seeing India doing amazing work in human spaceflight launch capabilities, as well as non-human endeavors. So just remember that it's an evolving story. And the best part of that, you being interested in this, is you can write the future that you want to see. You all have that power.
Excellent. So honestly, we are just short on time right now because this link will expire in some time, but we do have a lot of questions. Let's do one thing. Maybe T, can you just share our LinkedIn network link here? Oh, sorry, WhatsApp network link here, and people can send us the questions. Yeah. And Amelie, you're already in the group. Maybe Shawna, you can also join for some time and answer the questions if you have time, or whenever you have time, if that works with you.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. All right, then. Thank you so much, both of you. It was like really, really a pleasure to have you here, especially talking during your expedition. It's really special for our entire community to hear you. Like people who had like such an amazing example of curiosity, resilience, and teamwork. I can see the teamwork between you, the sister who you have within you. It's really inspiring for all of us. We loved all your answers. And thank you again to share all your insights. And thank you all of you to join us. And we look forward to see you in your future events, and have a wonderful Sunday. And let me send you the link to our network, and you can join and maybe reply to some of those questions.
It's already in the chat, but we can send Amelie and Shawna as well.
Yes, perfect. All right then. Thank you so much, guys. Let's catch up
Thank
soon.
you.
Bye.
Bye.